to go.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Tonight is the February 9th, 2022 meeting of the City of Issaquah Human Services Commission. I am your chair, Susan Leonelli, and on behalf of myself and Vice Chair Pat Sadat Ngachu, we welcome you to this regular meeting, and we are excited to have an action-packed agenda tonight. And I think one of the first things on the agenda here is to just make official note of our attendance. And I see Sarah has joined us as well. So hi, Sarah. The only person that we know is not currently in attendance is Jaime, who will be joining us shortly. Is that correct? Do I need to do any sort of formal roll call? Or are we okay with that, Hannah?
We are good to move forward if you would like.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And so glad to have everybody join us tonight. The second item on our agenda, as usual, is a time for any public comments. Do we know tonight, Hannah, if we've got anybody in attendance from the public or somebody who would like to make a comment?
We have one attendee who is in public, and this is our intern, Dominique. So she's joined us for the evening to observe, but there are no public comments that have been made.
Okay, well, welcome, Dominique. Thank you. Glad to have you with us tonight. So the next item on our agenda, as usual, is the approval of the minutes. I'm sorry, did somebody want to say something? No? Okay. If folks would please take a look, if you haven't already, at the minutes, the draft of the minutes that was prepared. And these are the minutes of the meeting of January 19th, 2022. And I'll watch for anybody who might have any corrections or other statements that they would like to make. And I see Claire, you have a
This is
comment?
pure vanity, but my name is misspelled on
That's
page
not
one of the
vanity, that's
minutes.
important.
Claire. There's an E at the end of my name. Pure
Thank you
vanity.
for that.
Not that it might be.
Anyone else see any corrections, clarifications? All right. Well, I would like to seek approval by a unanimous consent of the minutes as presented with the correction of Claire's name spelling. Any objections to that? I see none, so I would like to say that the minutes are approved as presented with that change. Thank you very much. And then our next item on the agenda looks to be staff report, and that will be presented by Hannah and Monica. So Monica, I believe the first part might be yours. Is that correct?
Thank you very much, Susan. I think, yes, typically I provide updates from Mayor Polly and City Council. With your permission, I think the update that I have, it's related to the upcoming City Council study session, and actually it's on our agenda, the main agenda, one of the first agenda items regarding the Human Services Strategic Plan. So we can just talk about that at that time, if that's okay. Thank you. And I believe Hannah has some other updates.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. So just wanted to go over briefly the Human Services and Commission update. We are excited to be celebrating this month, Black History Month. And we have two events coming up that I want to make you all aware of and invite you and your families to join. So the first one is our cultural conversations. This is going to be focusing on Black History Month. It's going to be Thursday, February 17th from noon to 1. So kind of a lunch hour meeting. And this is led by our City of Issaquah's Equity Board. We'll be hosting just a thought-provoking conversation on the meaning of Black History Month. So we're very excited to have panelists there to join us and have some in-depth conversation. You can register or join us at the time. And again, that's next week, February 17th, noon to 1. And then the other event, this is more of a fun family trivia night type of event for Black History Month. And this will be Thursday, February 17th, so the same day, but in the evening at 6:30. Really just supposed to be a fun, educational, virtual event. Both events will be virtual, and would love to see you all there. So please consider joining us. And then Claire, did you have a question?
How does a family or a person register for the Black History Month noon panel discussion?
Yeah, so the link was included in the staff report. So I did hyperlink that. So that's one way you can access, or you can go onto our Issaquah calendar and you can find it on the 17th and then just register there. Great question. And then Lucrecia, did you have anything else?
We're twins. I had the same question.
Yeah, really hope to see you all there. We're very excited for this event and excited for these conversations, well, very important conversations. So,
And
yeah.
With your permission, I'm going to jump in. If you're receiving the city weekly newsletter, The Insider, it's also being promoted on that one. So last Friday, it was promoted, and this Friday will be promoted as well. And of course, as always, we can also just send you a quick email if helpful, so you have it on the top of your many probably emails that you're receiving.
Thank you. Was that is that all you had, Hannah?
Yes, Susan, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just get some quick advice. I realize, Hannah and Monica, that I made a technical error. I called this a regular Human Services meeting, and I realize now, looking at the top of the agenda, it's a special meeting. Do we need to clarify that, or would you mind capturing that in the notes? Is that okay? Do I need to say anything else with regard to that?
Yeah, I think we're okay to move forward. Thanks for correcting that, though.
Thank you. Claire, I saw your, you saw that too. Thank you. All right. So it looks like the next item on our agenda is item 5A, the draft Human Services Strategic Plan Feedback Summary. And it looks like, Monica, this will be presented by you. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you very much, Susan, and good evening, commissioners, once again. As you might have seen, for the first time in a while, we decided not to have a PowerPoint presentation, but rather we do have the summary of all the feedback that we received, and we're hoping for a more open conversation. And really, I think my main question to you tonight, I would like to use a sentence that it's notoriously known at weddings when somebody, when at some point during a wedding ceremony, the question is asked if there's someone in the audience who feel that these two should not be wed, please speak now or forever hold your peace. With your permission, I think I would like the question for tonight to be if you see any reasons in the draft strategic plan why this should not be presented to City Council for final feedback next week, please let us know now, or otherwise we would love to move this forward. We do understand that the strategic plan and the adoption, it's really not the end, it's just the very beginning. We are excited to start work on it and operationalize it. So I think we would love to have hear from you tonight. If there are any final suggestions that you have, definitely we would love to hear them. And with that, if there are any initial questions, I'm going to pause. Otherwise, I will share my screen so I can show you a little bit how we gathered all the feedback from the community and how we addressed it in the plan. Does that sound good? Moving forward, okay. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Give me just a moment to make sure I have the right page open. After 2 years of virtual meetings, I think I'm finally getting this sharing thing down to the last details. So you had in your package this rather lengthy table, thanks to Hannah for all her work on this. What we did, if you remember, in the last month, we had a community engagement process asking for feedback from City Council, from you as a commission, from the community, our nonprofit partners, and the residents, asking for feedback and input on what edits and changes we should make. And so we summarized everything in this feedback. On the left-hand side, we have a summary of the feedback that was proposed. And then on the right-hand side, we have a response on how we address the feedback and or what our response was. I want to note that I believe that at least 95% of the feedback that we received, we really tried to implement it. I think the very few things that we were not able to change were either because perhaps the feedback was not directly related to the plan, or perhaps there were some just technicalities, small details, and so forth. So with that, you will see as I go through the information, we received 3 types of feedbacks. I think grammatical, typos, editing content, wording, that's one, along with perhaps suggestions to add different pictures or highlight different things. Then we had some suggestions to highlight or to focus more on certain populations, seniors in particular. We also heard from someone in the community regarding LGBTQ, or as you might know, those who are low income and working. So that was another category of feedback that we received. And then a third category, I think, was included in various suggestions regarding either parts of the document in highlighting different performance metrics, or focus more on the challenge or problem or the why, and then just highlighting some data documents. So with that, I'm going to dive a little bit in more detail. On January 11th, as you may recall, we went to City Council. So we summarized their feedback here. Just going briefly, emphasis, there was concern that there's perhaps too much emphasis on homelessness. And then perhaps if we could highlight more the population who's low income and working, I think the wording used was working poor. There was, and I forgot to mention, we'll talk a little bit more about the funding. There were also recommendations to add more information regarding the budget, and then also consider the human services grants into that. I'm going to address this at the very end. As I mentioned, including seniors was one of the recommendations. We addressed that, including the human services citywide performance measures. We addressed that. The strategic actions, to just review them to make sure that those are measurable. We did that. Highlighting basic needs and the food bank in particular, we did that. Again, I'm going to address the financial piece just in a few moments. I'm going to come back to this. Then we had the commission meeting on January 11th. Here we received some great feedback on, again, grammatical content and also adding numbers next to percentages. This is one of the areas where we did it, but we did not do it across all numbers that we are providing in the document. We are, however, proposing to provide a separate document just with the demographic data and include numbers with percentages as well. Provided additional information on how to tell the story of those who are chronically poor, working poor. So we provided some information there. We did have some limitations in terms of reliable data there. Again, we added also a different appendix, just focusing on describing populations, the different populations. to the feedback on addressing the why, we do have quite a lengthy section on addressing the community needs, and so we added some information in the goal section as well, and then we also plan to further address that during implementation. We also received feedback from you as a commission to get feedback from non-funded organizations. We did that. We thanks to some of you who put us in contact with an organization, but also we reached out on our end to other organizations here on the East Side who we do not fund, and we had great conversations with them as well. Also, we had recommendation to use part of the grants funding process. So this is a higher level process related feedback on how to use the grants funds. Again, I'm going to come back to that in just a minute to address that a little bit more. We received the STAR model from one of you. We appreciated that. We reviewed it. It seemed like the model was rather addressing organizations and employees. We are still going to look further into how we may implement some of that model into the community-wide strategic plan. And then next, we also, as you may recall, actually, we had two of you attend the community workshop. We had a community-wide workshop where we had guests from our nonprofit partners. Great conversation there as well. And then we received some feedback on bigger picture and then also smaller details on including certain age demographics, on seeing the behavioral health program grow and expand, increasing frequency to some of the actions in the plan, especially technology assistance, transportation, calling that out. Then again, some edits into some of the descriptions, like wording for some of the organizations. So wording for St. Vincent, wording for the framework for the resource center, another wording for the Issaquah Cultural Circle. So all of those have been included and edited. More information again for seniors, address that. As I mentioned earlier, some other suggestions for photos. We included quite a few photos there. Again, increase frequency for some of the action-oriented goals. And this is another one of course, we would love to increase frequency wherever possible. On the other end, we know that for all the goals that had a frequency, we put minimum, and that's a minimum that we felt like we could commit with existing staffing resources. We would love to increase frequency, of course, if that's available. But we could not commit all the time to be able to do that. And also, again, how we would measure success, we edited and we added some information there. And then in addition to that, as you might have seen, we did reach out directly via email to nonprofit partners, to community members that we engaged with over the last couple of years. And also the draft plan went out via the city's newsletter, The Insider, and we invited the community to contact us. And so we did receive emails or phone calls, and we set up meetings with different community members. So then this is a section that includes that feedback. We received a concern from a community member that perhaps the plan will provide a departure from the traditional human services grant funding process and how that is measured. And then we assure that we do not plan to completely move from that. We just plan on providing different priorities and different buckets for that. Then we also received questions on and general feedback on what is the role and purpose of the strategic plan. We received feedback regarding childcare options, and we included that in the plan. We also received great feedback, and we had a great meeting with a community member who identifies as LGBTQ. And again, in the part and section on where people feel stigmatized, safe, and welcoming, we added some information there to make sure that the LGBT community is also heard and part of this plan. And last but not least, the Eastside Community Development Fund, which is a newer nonprofit organization created by private entities on the East Side, made recommendations, and they suggested that we include their recommendations on how to address homelessness into the strategic plan. And so the city already works with ECDF and with the Regional Homelessness Authority. And then, of course, I think the next step in this plan, once the plan is adopted, as we start to operationalize it, the next step will be to really identify partners in addressing many of the actions on the plan. So absolutely, we would love to continue and work with ECDF and other partners in addressing homelessness. So this concludes the brief overview on the changes and edits that were included in the plan. I'm happy to share the screen and go through the 72 pages of the plan if you would like to have a visual in case you didn't see it. I do trust that all of you have it though on the screen, and I'm not going to do that unless specifically you are requesting it. However, I would love to pause for questions, comments, anything that you would like to share. Again, in terms of next steps, and I see Jaime also joined, good evening and welcome. I think the question that we have in front of you tonight is what we are looking for you is to let us know if you have any concerns, any serious concerns of why this plan should not move to City Council next week for their final feedback, if you see any major concerns, and any final thoughts on it. Lucrecia.
I just want to commend you, Monica and Hannah, and your staff for taking all of our comments into consideration when creating this hopefully final draft that will move forward. I would like to ask, in addition to what you've done now, is that for in the future, if there's a way to collect that data that has been difficult to gather this time around with regards to who are our residents in need, because I do think it telling the story for me humanizes the situation, right? Like, are we talking about retirees with fixed income? Are we talking about people who have been damaged in their service to the country and therefore need certain services? Are we talking about chronic poverty, generational poverty? Are we talking about people who are in situational poverty, such as college students who have limited income, but by finishing their degrees, they will be able to, take a leap out of poverty? And I think that informing ourselves with that kind of data also gives us some leverage as to how to allocate money and then help us to better explain why we're choosing to fund what we're choosing to fund. And that's the only thing that I would like the record to show, is that for future reference, it would be really great to kind of know who our community members are and why they're in that situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucrecia. And it's very, very helpful to hear your thoughts and thinking. We do have those personal stories, and I would love for us to have a way to share those. I think our concern was when it's time to put those in a demographic data, right? We know that, let's say, a little bit over 7% of the population lives in poverty, and then we provide some information, but we cannot, because we heard, let's say, from 5 families or from 20 residents, we cannot expand those stories. But there's certainly, I think, there's a place for us to share those stories, especially during the granting allocations and recommendations, to share those stories that what we heard. It's just, it did not seem fair for us to, expend that data and to make assumptions to based on the general population, right? But yeah, I love your suggestion, and I would love to kind of look into how in the future we can use that data that we gather and those stories.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If I can just expand on that, Lucrecia, because I did a lot of research on this just to find the in-depth data that you're talking about, because I think you're right. It is important to paint the story. And for us, specifically in the strategic plan, part of painting the story is including the data. So I just wanted to share specifically what I gathered from that suggestion. And I was able to find a little more in-depth data point to include in the strategic plan. So you'll see on page 17, 17, it was added that of the 7.8% who are in poverty, just over half were in the labor force. So I just wanted to share that data point that was added based off of your comment. So like Monica said, it was hard to include all the stories that humanize what we're trying to do and who we're working with and for. But that is just one thing I wanted to add to what Monica had said. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Hannah. Thank you.
There, I see you have a comment or a question, and then Anna.
I also just wanted to recognize the incredible work that you guys have done, and it's very impressive, and it's a really nice comprehensive look, and I just really appreciate it. There were a couple thoughts that I had as you were reviewing kind of all the comments, and one of the things that really jumped out at me, and this is not the most polished thing I've ever said, so I apologize, but I was shocked to see that 2 of the different outreach meetings you had, someone or some group came with some pushback about the focus on persons who are homeless. I thought that was really interesting, especially in the light of our last meeting where you told us that because of the severe weather in Issaquah, there was motel rooms that were rented and service that was provided. And I mean, the compassion of that outreach is excellent. It also cost $18,000, which is a lot of money. And I don't at all blink at the cost of it, because I think that was actually probably a pretty good deal considering all of the things that were needed and provided. But that piece would be pushed back in your plan. I mean, that is clearly a huge problem and an unsustainable part of the city's budget if we're going to have this unexpected $18,000 thing every year. So I actually thought the focus on persons that were homeless and all of the different interventions was a really great thing, and I was glad to see that in there. I guess 2 other thoughts. One was I really appreciated all the focus on measurement and all the financial pieces that you included. And I think that goes a long way to the cost, what's it going to be like. Also, I was struck with 2 other things. One was that the median age in Issaquah was 37. That is just, I just had to pull that out in front of everyone and just say, wow, that's young. That maybe explains a little bit of kind of our lack of experience in grappling as a city with some of these issues that have come up in the last few years. So that just really stood out to me. Also, it stood out to me that it was just past about 40,000 people from the census. And I was thinking, on my own time, I need to go back and look at the census numbers from before that, from the last few censuses, don't know, and see what the rate of increase is, because I'm assuming that it's just been like kind of an explosive growth here, and that's part of the need for this action plan is to respond to the rate of growth. So those are just a few of the things that stood out to me. both as like not problems or anything, but just pieces that I thought were excellent that were in there, in just commending you for your research and all of the above. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you very, very much, Claire. So appreciating that feedback. And yeah, just thank you. And in 2010, the population, and the only reason I remembered it's because it's a 10, 10, 10 incremental. I believe the population was 30,000. So 10 years, 10,000 growth since the last census, since 2010. At least that's what I.
Monica, you're totally right. I just looked it up because it's been a number I've been looking at as well. So I'll just add here that since the last census, it was a 32% increase, and Issaquah is growing at a rate of 0.7% annually. In fact.
I see Anna's hand. I actually also had a comment about the homeless comment that Claire made, but Anna, after you.
First of all, Monica, Hannah, that's a great document. It takes a lot of time, research, and effort to put that together. And the other thing, once council approves this document, could it be a possibility or stated somewhere that addendums might be updated with, current data and maybe the stories that Lucretia was on there, and maybe a link for people to go to those addendums that have been, this is irrelevant, but added after council has approved this piece of document. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Definitely absolutely great suggestion, and great opportunity for me to tell you a little bit of what would happen next. So absolutely, we believe and we want this document to be a live document, and we have already, although it's a 5-year plan, we do have a 2-year mark and 3-year mark of formal update. But meanwhile, we also started working internally with our data analyst in our finance team, because we hope to create a web page where all the metrics that we have, we are going to be able to share them on the website, and then kind of like share how we are making progress or what are the challenges on that, and then absolutely provide opportunities for the public to provide input and for us to continue to make edits. It should be a live document, right? We should start working on those actions and then learn from, see what's working and see what's not working. So great suggestion, great idea. And definitely, I think that's the intent. Susan, you had a comment, and then
Yeah.
Also Pat and Jaime.
Thank you. I have a couple comments. One on the homeless point, and then the other one I'll just hold till later. But the one thing that it was interesting how you framed out what we learned about the needs of the homeless population in Issaquah, and then some of the barriers to getting services. I can't say that I'm surprised by any of it, because you've been sharing it with us, all along, and we've, some of the issues are long-standing, and we've been trying to address them in different ways. The one thing that I thought might not have been called out as clearly is we have been, as a city, supporting and funding homeless shelters for years, and but the method that we've been using is this sort of cost share, whatever, for these regional centers. So I wonder if a reader might get the misimpression that because we don't have actual shelters in the city, that we really aren't doing anything, except you call it the outreach and you call these types of things. But I wonder if if we could paint a picture of a city in transition of how we address homelessness, not if we address homelessness, because we've been addressing homelessness with lots of money, and it may not be very effective, and we may have to do a different strategy. And I think we're kind of working toward that. But that I think is a little bit of a different story than like, why aren't you addressing homelessness? Which, you know, someone might get that impression, you know, in the document. What are your thoughts on that? You've been a lot closer to it and you're kind of living that conversation right now.
That's a great point, Susan. I would love to go back and definitely I think we can make a stronger perhaps call out for that. I think we do link the current programs and organizations that we fund, but I would love to go back and kind of like look at see how we paint a picture of what we are doing now, because you're right, and we've been addressing homelessness and we've been responding to homelessness. It is a regional issue and we've been responding to it regionally. What we've been learning, which is new this time around during this community engagement, is that whatever we are doing, it does not impact positively or it does not help homeless folks in Issaquah locally, right? Because
and specifically on page 30 in the what we learned section, maybe you could it can just even be there. You might want to just see if that's a good place for it to fit, because you talk about you know what unsheltered individuals are likely to access, but then you go right to the barriers of accessing services, transportation, and which is one of them. Well, like, why do they need transportation? It's because the services are elsewhere, because that's our model. Our model is to utilize services that require transportation, and that was kind of like purposeful. And now we realize, like, oops, there was a missing link in that, because anyway, it just might give the city and all of the folks who've been on, you know, working hard on this for years, a little bit of credit for like trying to address this in various ways. And we've been trying this and trying that. Now we realize that, you know, those funds might be better utilized in a different model. And that's what you're going to see coming out of this new, you know, human services strategic plan, because we have a like take care of our own lens, whereas before it was like, you know, participate in the region lens. That may be an oversimplification, but
yeah. No, that's very helpful. And you're right, especially that part of the document focuses on what the need is in the community and not so much on what's existing. But we do have in the first part, like the existing resources. And then perhaps there we should, if not on page 30, on the place where we talk about what's existing and existing resources, to focus more on touching more on the regional aspect there. I do know that we touch on that, but I don't know that it's enough to focus on, you know, things that have been done. Yeah, thank you for that.
Anna, do you have a follow-up on that?
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Money, we give money to these agencies that are not in Issaquah and they do not have a shelter in Issaquah. Can they be tapped to see if they are willing to share the cost of providing a place for our homeless during these emergency situations, since they have a contract, and if our clients would go to their agency, they would be served. So has that come to any attention, or to see, hey, you know, we gave you like 20,000 and we need 1,000 from the agency to cover the homeless, but we have to provide them because of Mother Nature here in Issaquah. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So yeah, unfortunately, it's so much more complex. And while we've been supporting regional shelters, most often they are at capacity or beyond capacity. And even when they are not at capacity, what we learned that the folks who live in Issaquah, they just simply don't want to leave Issaquah. They don't want to go to another city. So even if they had capacity, and understandably, even if they don't have a home, this is their home, right? So it's complex. Definitely, we are working and we are going to continue to work. But now that we've been actively engaging, creating a by name database when we start to know people by name, really knowing their stories, knowing their challenges. These are the types of things that we learned this year. So yeah, thank you. Definitely more to talk on homelessness for sure. It's yeah. So thank you. And I think I can remember Pat was next and then Jaime, I believe.
Yes, thank you. And again, amazing work. And it was really encouraging to see the enthusiasm of the community. At that session I attended, they really paid attention and they gave really great feedback. I just wanted to clarify something in terms of this being a living document. So how do we make it living? Is it that we have said that intentionally, and I can't remember, at some time, at some specific point in time, we will make modifications to it, or is it any time we can make modifications to it? Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. In the documents, we note the end of 2023 and then again the end of 2024 as points where we formally will review everything and make edits and modifications. And so I believe that that will be the formal process. Before that, we can certainly accept feedback. And if there's a point that, so we are already in 2022, so end of 2023, it's next year, right? If before that, there's going to be a reason why we need to make a major update or edit, then we could come back to the commission and council and make that. But otherwise, we hope to start implementation here in the next month, in the next quarter, and then go until next year and do a formal update at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jaime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. This is a lot of work. So I tip my hat to folks that participate in this, Monica. Does the STAR model design, does that, I mean, I'm looking at it, does that kind of address a lot of the root concerns that people are expressing on a model that you've all selected?
Personally, when I read the STAR model, I felt like it's more applicable to empowering employees in an organization rather than the community-based level. So I think I would love the opportunity to perhaps meet individually with Claire. I believe it was you who sent that model to us, and see how we may use it in implementation. So I think that's where we are at this point with it.
Yeah, and the next question would be, yeah, even the demographics are interesting too. So my question would be, I think it got changed in terms of the culture connecting group. Let me see real quick here. Update services in Issaquah culture description from Latino events to culture events and add a club. Response, update cultural circle description and add a club. Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, so those were specific suggestions from that cultural group. So for example, the Issaquah Cultural Circle formerly used to be known as the Latino Club. We had a section in the plan where we provided a brief description on the existing agencies in Issaquah. And so they made a suggestion on kind of like modifying a little bit the description pertaining to their organization. So yeah, their scope of work changes, and so they wanted highlighted the fact that in addition to supporting Latino events, they want to just support other cultural events as well. Does that help?
Yeah, and I think what stood out to me was the people living in poverty. I think Hispanic, like 32%. Just heartbreaking. No, thank you so much. I've been kind of looking at right now. So thank you.
Thank you so much. The same, Jaime. Commissioners, anyone else with comments or questions or any final thoughts? While you're thinking about that, I would like to also just point out a few things that I mentioned earlier that I will speak to, and that is the budget and the human services grants funding. So you might have seen some of the modifications or edits that we made in the strategic plan based on input received from you and City Council, was that we provided some information on the cost of the program. In particular, we provided some visuals, some icons, and we assigned each goal and each action to one of the 3 buckets that we proposed. So what we basically said in the plan was that each of the goals and actions can be addressed with either existing staffing resources, 2, the human services grants, or 3, funds that we need to identify new funding sources, either one-time or ongoing funding sources. And these can be a combination of grants or federal, state, county dollars, not just necessarily city dollars. So then we assigned, as I mentioned, to each of the goal areas and each of the specific actions, we assigned them to one bucket, either staff resources, grant resources, or additional funding needed. And with that, I know the City Council also had asked and proposed that perhaps we have a conversation on the amount of the human services grants, and we are proposing to City Council to go back to a separate meeting and just have a separate conversation just on the granting allocations. So then that meeting can be dedicated. This way we separate the strategic plan, which really should focus on identifying the needs and identifying the priorities. Once we have those and everybody feels comfortable with those, then we can move into identifying money to implement those goals. So more to come on that, and that's where we are in the financial piece. Also, last but not least, in the plan, within those 3 categories, we also kind of like put a price tag, if you wish. We had 3 levels of funding, projects that will, let's say, need a base funding, and we put that range between $0 and $50,000. Then we identified a second range between $50,000 and $200,000, and then anything that's above $200,000. And then we noted those across all action items as well. So just wanted to highlight that. Okay. Any other final questions? Or if not, if there are no questions, comments, or suggestions, I think perhaps with a show of hands, I think we are very good with a thumbs up, down, or unsure. How do you feel about this moving forward next week to City Council for final feedback? You see hands up from everyone except for Manny and Anna, or thank you, Manny and Anna as well. Okay, thank you very much, commissioners. We appreciate that. So just 20 more seconds on this. Next week on February 15, we go to a council study session for a last, hopefully, what we believe and hope to be a last feedback sought from City Council. And if we receive the green light from them as well, then we will return the following week on February 22nd for adoption. Or March 7th is also, so we provide a couple of options for City Council in case they would like to choose a different date. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Very exciting. Thank you. Thank you for all the great feedback to the commissioners. So appreciate that. Very exciting. All right. So we're doing great on time. I think the next item on our agenda is B, the Human Services grant draft supplemental for the 2023-2024 grant cycle. And I believe that will be presented by Hannah.
Thank you, Susan. Yes, so I'll be presenting our supplemental, and then I'll have Monica share the screen when we need to pull that up. So I'll go ahead and begin.
Would you like me to pull it up now, or just you're gonna tell me? Sorry, Hannah.
I'll tell you when to pull it up. I'm going to show the next steps. All right, so I'll go ahead and start us off. So in preparation for the Human Services Grant Funding Cycle, which is coming up, as you all know, we wanted to spend time this meeting to discuss the supplemental that will be included in the grant application process. So tonight I'll be reviewing the background information, providing an overview of the draft supplemental that we provided, and a timeline of what next steps will look like. So as I review, I just ask for you to consider the following 2 questions. What kind of information would you like to see on the city supplemental? And what is unique about Issaquah compared to the other cities in the region? So what is a supplemental? The 2023-2024 supplemental, it's a part of the Share One app 16 city application process that allows organizations to submit one application for multiple cities. Each city provides a supplemental to describe their focus areas or include additional questions for organizations that become a part of the application process. As an overview of what the draft supplemental includes, which again is provided in the agenda packet, the approximate available funding that we are anticipating in 2023 and 2024 as of now is $500,000 per year, which is the same as our last funding cycle. The funding recommendations are made by Human Service Commission, you all, and final funding decisions are made by our City Council during the budget process that will be taking place in the fall in 2022. So the application review process, we have funding recommendations will be made by Commission by September, with considerations by City Council planned for October, December 2022. Final allocations amount will be approved and adopted as part of the overall city budget, and the City of Issaquah staff will notify those agencies of the final allocations expected by late November. And then the awarded funds will be available starting January 1st, 2023. So for the City of Issaquah, what we are wanting to include in the supplemental, we really want to focus and highlight the focus areas from the Human Service Strategic Plan. So the Human Service Commission will use the strategic priorities from the Human Services Strategic Plan to guide its funding decisions. Hence why it's very important for you all to know and understand the strategic plan and where the focus and priority areas are. This supplemental summarizes the strategic plan, focus areas, and highlights a commitment to advancing equity, diversity, inclusion, and social justice through initiatives, and our work in human services centered around the vision of Issaquah. So as you are aware, the strategic plan really was created to for the human services initiatives for the next 5 years to help inform our priorities, provide a roadmap for social services, investments, policy recommendations, advocacy, and technical assistant needs. Seen on the strategic plan, the service gaps identified that were included in the supplemental were the physical and behavioral health, the housing continuum, including housing affordability and homelessness, cultural specific services and language access, and community resources as well. So the purpose in including this information in our supplemental is to help guide applications to emphasize how their organization can meet the needs of Issaquah specifically. So with this, the supplemental we are proposing, and we seek input tonight or some feedback of what kind of information would you like to see on the city supplemental as you have reviewed it, and what do you feel like is unique to Issaquah compared to the other regions? So that is kind of what we're looking to have a discussion on. And before we jump into that, I'd like for Monica, if you don't mind sharing the screen, it'd be helpful to have the visual of our next steps that was included in the memo. Oh, we may not have it. It's not in this one. Sorry.
Sorry, Hannah,
Yeah.
would you like me to share the memo?
Yes,
Okay, give me just a
you can
moment.
pull that up. Sorry about that.
No worries.
And for anybody who's following along in their packet, these items are at the way, way, way end of the packet, like
Yes.
page 83, 84,
After the strategic plan.
after the strategic plan. Yeah.
the large strategic plan. Okay, perfect. So real quick here, I wanted to show you the visual just because it's easier that way. So here's what we're looking for next steps in the application process. So February 22nd is the first. This is when we will have Share One app will open to organizations to make any updates to their profile. We will have the official supplemental due at the end of the month. If you want to scroll down, Monica. And then the important date here is March 14th. That's when our applications will open up. And then on the 15th and 16th, we will be having funders workshops. So this will be kind of a city or a region wide with the other cities providing just more guidance and information on the process of how to apply for agencies. But I will also add here that for the city of Issaquah, we do offer one-on-one technical assistance in this process. So if there's any grassroots organizations or anybody who has any questions, they're always welcome to reach out to us and we can provide on that one-on-one support. This is something important, I think, for commissioners to note here. Cities are in conversation. We are looking at April to have an all city human services commission equity training. So I think we've done this before a few months ago, but this will be including all the other cities, Bellevue, Redmond, Sammamish, Kirkland, who will join us for an equity training with the intention and thought behind of having this training right before application review, as we can have an equity lens in approaching the applications. So May 1st is when we also anticipate new commissioners to begin the term. And then I put here on May 18th, that's our regular commission meeting. What I'd like to do is make sure that we kind of set the stage for everyone to be successful of the application review preparation. So especially with new commissioners coming on board, want to set us up for success of what will this process look like? How do we prepare for it? And then come summer, we'll be doing the application review and we'll have more information as we get closer of what that procedure and process will exactly look like. And then September, we will have recommendations. So that's what we're looking at for next steps. So we're going to take down the screen, Monica. So with that, I just would like to conclude just the presentation on the supplemental. And I'd like to open up the floor for just any thoughts or if anybody wants to discuss, you know, what kind of information you would want to see on a supplemental in addition to what's there. Any other thoughts about what's unique about Issaquah that you think should be included? So I will go ahead and open the floor.
I believe, Anna, you had your hand up.
Is there gonna be like a spreadsheet or a list of previous years receivers of grants? That way, the new commission, but also the community, can see how we try to address, you know, as many aspects in our community as possible, and also give maybe widely known or widely not known agencies a chance to apply to this program. And it also assures them that we are trying our best to allocate the money where it's needed the most, but also keep in mind that it's not only regional, but we also have to keep the local picture in mind. You know, timing, everything. That way, everybody knows, okay, we're moving like everybody else, not independently, in a nutshell. We try to do our best to expand those funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, that's a really good point as we're preparing for the application process. We do have a document exactly summarizing what you're talking about. So that can be definitely included in our presentation as we prepare. And so I think that is important to address as well. So we can include that. Thank you. Susan?
And sort of building off Anna's comment there about.
Yeah, can you
sort
hear
of
me okay?
Transparency.
Oh, hi, Trish. Yes.
Do you want me to continue or should I pause?
Oh, it looks
Is it my
like
turn?
Trish froze. Sorry, Susan was just making her comment, and then you can go right after her, Trish.
Go ahead, Susan.
Okay, thank you. So building on the transparency comment, I'm also wondering if it might be helpful to set expectations and provide a little bit of data to the folks who are going to be applying this coming cycle about our historical funding rates. So I know we don't want to share specific details and specific like who got what, that's not really what we're after, but would it be helpful to know that you share like the $500,000 target, but last year I think we were able to fund probably, I'm just going to pick a number, 60% of what the ask was. Maybe it was even less than that, 40% of what the ask was. The year before it may have been 70% of the ask we funded. Does that kind of information help an applicant know about sort of like what to expect? Like, we want you to give us a really great proposal that's very compelling, but just so you know, we've never funded 100%. We just don't have the capacity to do that. So kind of like expectations wise, do you think that would help or do you think that would hurt?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start off here. So I would say there's a comment in the supplemental that kind of it grazes over that, basically saying that please be reasonable in your request, but let us know what you are needing as an agency. So I think we do touch base on that briefly, but I'm wondering if we could add an attachment to the supplemental to see the summary of what was allocated in the last year. So that could be easily attached. What do you think, Monica?
Yeah, and I don't even think we need to have an attachment to an attachment. I think it's just data. It's just a brief. I think I really love the idea, like a brief either table format or paragraph in saying, because we already have it for the 2020-2021 funding where we say we have 500,000, but we received 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Right. And then just go back one more cycle to say this much how much money we had and this much how much received, or maybe two funding cycles. So then people can see to kind of like compare just high level. I think that's doable. And I think I would appreciate it as an applicant to kind of compare. So I think it's great.
Exactly, because we're sort of challenging them to tell us what they need. But, then they work hard to tell us what they need. And we're like, yeah, you never really had a chance to get all of what you need because we don't have that much money. So it's kind of like the opportunity to get 100% of what you need is almost like false hope, just because of the mismatch between the requests and the ask and the funding. And that, I understand that's how the grant process works, but just being a little bit more candid and say, this is, we trust you to tell us what you really need and what's really going to be impactful. And then you can trust us to, to be upfront with what we have to work with.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Susan. And Trish, you had something to add. Go for it, Trish.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Okay. So this will be first time going through the granting process with Human Services. Is there a question, this kind of goes along with Susan, is there a question where we say, if you don't get the full funding you're requesting, will you be able to execute? Do we have anything like that?
It is part of the application, yes, Trish. That's part of the common application. And then, yes, we do ask them to show us how they're going to leverage the funds. Yes. It's a good idea, though, for us to go and specific,
And then
because sometimes leveraging funds, it's a little bit different. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we do have it in the application, but we'll go back, and if it's not specifically addressed, it might be good to add it to the supplemental.
And then can you repeat those two questions you were asking us?
Yes, happy to.
What makes Quad different? That was one, right?
Yeah, so what is unique about Issaquah compared to the other cities in the region? And what kind of information would you like to see on the city supplemental? So we've added the data that Susan mentioned about previous requests versus what was allocated. Anything else?
Well, you know, aren't we the cities that has an equity board? Doesn't that make us different?
Oh, that's a very good point.
Monica?
I was just going to jump in to say that you are spotty and we couldn't understand, but we understood the last two words, and I think we made up what you were trying to say before. You're cutting in and out, so we couldn't really hear.
Oh, you didn't catch my question?
Feels like the equity board.
What's that, Trish?
What I was saying is, do the other cities that participate have an equity board?
Right. Yeah, no, so that's why we understood, and that might be something, yes, to in a brief description about Issaquah for us to be able to know that.
Yeah, great suggestion.
Yeah.
And then just because I think you're a little delayed, I want to make sure, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, that's it.
Okay, great. And then I did have here Pat actually message, comment, and question. And then Anna, I saw your hand, so I'll have you go next after Pat.
Yes, it is a comment. Also, it can be a question. So in terms of what we can put there, I know, do we have statistics as to the organizations that we have funded, what exactly they've used the money for? Or I can phrase it another way. When we fund something, we don't fully fund it. Do we ask them to do something specific from their proposal, or it's up to them to do it? Mm-hmm.
I can respond to that. So that part goes, we do that during contracting. So once the Human Services Commission makes the recommendation and then the council adopts the budget, depending on how much money then we have, then we start the contracting and negotiation process individually with each organization. And then that's when we look at their application and we say, okay, you propose that you're gonna serve 50 residents, but we only pay you half. Does that make sense? Can you then serve 25 residents with half the money, or do you have others? So that's where we begin that. During the contracting process, we do that.
Okay, so I guess maybe that if we have the information as to what specific services have been funded in the past, that can be helpful. But then, because we have a new strategic plan where the priorities might be slightly different, but we also refer them to the strategic plan and our priorities.
Yes. Thank you. Definitely, we will refer them to the strategic plan. And the information is public, already available. We can certainly send and follow up an email. It is on the Human Services webpage of the city. Certainly, we can share it with the commission.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Monica. Claire, I'm sorry I didn't see your hand earlier, so I'll go ahead and have Anna go if that's okay, and then I'll have you go next, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Going back a few years, when we were working on the grants, there was a minimum of financial request for the application to be looked at. That will not apply anymore because now that we have grassroots organizations that might not need, like, for example, 5, 6, 10,000. They might need maybe just 1,000 or 1,500. So we're not having any of that this year, maximum or minimum.
Thank you, Anna, for your question. So you'll find on funding criteria number 6, funding requests less than 4,000 per program will not be considered for the Human Services Commission. So if their organizations are requesting have under 4,000, they need to have a separate conversation with us. But so I would say the answer to your question, I believe, is our minimum right now is $4,000.
Thank you.
So we're not going to do the grant grassroots pathway anymore, or you're just saying that you'll have those conversations separately with those applicants?
Yeah, we're definitely wanting grassroots to apply, and we will provide technical assistance for that. But the funding would look similar, would look like $4,000 minimum. Monica, am I thinking about that correctly?
Yes, so we will continue to keep the minimum of $4,000 just because financially and contracting wise, sometimes you spend the money by the time you allocate them. So I think that was decided a couple of years ago from even just the amount of work that needs to be done with our financial system. However, we do want to encourage organizations, and if there's someone, especially smaller grassroots, that have a case, we would want to hear from them, and then we would make a case, right? It's just, yeah.
All right, thank you. Claire, would you like to share your comment?
I don't know. This is our comment, and I just want to put it out there. It feels a little early to me for us to toot our horn about having all this equity work. Let's see how we actually do the equity work, like what actually gets done from our board and how well our board builds out those relationships across the city. It's something that I hesitate to bring up, but it feels like it's front and center in our strategic plan, which I think is fine because it's our strategic plan to build that out and to do such a powerful job and make a big impact with it. But it also feels a little too over marketed, like we're so proud of something that we haven't really done yet. And I guess I wasn't sure if I wanted to say it, but there's a part of me that just feels like a little uncomfortable. I just had to put that out there.
Thank you, Claire. Trish, do you want to comment?
Claire, I get where you're coming from. Okay, can you guys hear me?
You're good.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but just the fact that the city council passed it is a big deal. Just the fact that we have an equity board, even though it hasn't been around for very long, I think is a big deal. Did you guys catch what I said?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Trish. And then Susan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say maybe we can find a little bit of way to balance and just say the city has a newly created equity board that will, help guide, our future work in this area. So be a little bit aspirational, but, to Claire's point, like don't oversell it like we are, rocking and rolling with equity quite yet.
Thank you, Susan. Pat, I saw your hand.
And I think Monica also had her hand, but I just wanted to say in terms of what is different about us. So the statistics that we've been able to gather about Issaquah, if we have the same for other cities, can't that be used as maybe good or bad either way, but it's tax, right? So I'm thinking, for instance, that in terms of homelessness, I saw that other races make up 40 or close to 41%, whereas the other races are only 6%. What about the other cities around us? Is it the same thing? I'm just saying, if we want to get something that is unique, it can be both ways, unique in a good way or unique in a way that this is a challenge that we need to address. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I forget, I'm still trying to learn the commissioner's name, so my apologies in advance. But I know, forget her name in terms of bringing up the equity conversation and, and being intentional about it. I think that's what, hopefully I'm interpreting that correctly. But there is some truth to it. If you look at our council members here at City of Issaquah, I think from what I'm looking at the page right now, they're mostly all white. And I'm not throwing shade, but that is something that we have to, be accountable. I think you have to, when I joined the commission, that's the first thing I did. I scanned and see where representation is, because we're going to be talking about historically marginalized populations and what that experience is, that connection to really advocate. I'm not saying we have to hide for it, but I think we should be accountable and speak to that, saying, hey, I'm fortunate enough that I'm looking at the commission here. I would, doing our best to be diverse, which I'm very happy to see that. But then you speak around the people that are also making adoptions to this plan. There's something to be said to that. I don't know if I'm just genuine as I can. That's one thing within our agency, Palm Beach County Superior Court, is, we're trying to do a better job of, with our elected judicial officers, is, when we're opening up the hood, and if there's not representation, then we're having that hard conversation. We're having that hard because we're dealing with kids of color that are coming in at historically rates similar to what's been raised in our plans, right? I looked at the residents living in poverty. It's mostly, Latinos, Hispanics, and also talked about the other person talked about, I guess I'm learning the names, but I think if we're going to be looking at data, it's always data around historically marginalized population. And the first thing that I ask is the people that are making decisions. What is the demographics, and as representation does matter. I don't know if it's a circle here, but I think if someone's going to ask me and say, hey, Jaime, this plan is great, who's making the decisions and who's advocating, I have to also speak, well, here's what our council members makeup looks like, and I'm going to be speaking and saying, hey, this is a direction, but also this is how we're accountable too. I think it's good to, name it. I think there's no shame in naming it and having a hard conversation, because these are the people who are going to be adopting our plans. So I just wanted to, put that out there.
Thank you, Jaime. I do want to just I see a few hands here. I just want to note our time. We do have one more agenda topic that I'd like to get to. So I would like to move forward from this topic if that's okay, but also want to get final thoughts to Lucrecia and Anna, or anybody else who needs to speak on specifically on the supplemental.
Mine is really brief. Jaime, if you hover on each individual thumbnail, you'll get the person's name. That's all I needed to add.
Thanks, Lucrecia. That's helpful. Anna, did you want to add anything?
Jaime, that's a nice comment on your part. And I would invite you to have a cup of coffee with the council members, because my experience throughout the years in Issaquah is that even though we might not have that diversity of skin colors in our council, they go very, very thoroughly over documents and things that they are going to pass, and they question every little detail. Fine. So, I mean, I support our council, and it also depends on the people that apply to those positions, which is out of our control. You know, we can suggest we need more people of this community and this other community, but if they're not open, I mean, we cannot leave council positions open. They're very important decisions to be made, not only for the Human Services Commission grants, but other commissions, the services provided in the city. So, I mean, they are great people. They are very, very focused on what they do, and they have their heart in it. Not only their brain, their heart is it. That's my little suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're not good people. Like, I'm not saying that at all. I just think that there has to be that conversation of representation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying, I think everyone's heart is always in the right place. I'm a firm believer in that, regardless of your journey. But there has to be a conversation of representation. At the end of the day, there's just you know, I don't know what it is to be Black. I'm brown, right? So I'm just saying that I think representation matters, especially when you're dealing with public dollars. I guess that's why I'm getting involved, right? In terms of commission and knowing my way. This is my first 3 months into my arena. You know, I work in the Superior Court, and it's a conversation with our judges. You know, if we're making some hard decisions, we got to have hard decisions internally, and that's why I just raised that question. It's not saying, hey, no one's good or anything. It's just, if we're going to be accountable, I think I should be able to speak to that and speak to our kids and people that are the numbers that are showing, right? I think that's all I'm saying, is just we should be having these accountable conversations. So I appreciate everyone. Like I said, this is my first rodeo. Just taking notes, just really reflecting and listening and all that. So thank you.
May, thank you so much for very thought-provoking, bringing those things up. Absolutely, would love to continue to see how we can elevate your opinions and voices here. So would love to circle back and see how, yeah, this is the time, this is the place to have these difficult conversations, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for the information on the supplemental. I do appreciate the feedback that we received. So we'll provide those edits. And again, thank you for the conversation. Susan.
May I ask if there's anything else that anyone thinks of after this conversation about something that might differentiate Issaquah or be nice to call out? Do you have any flexibility to receive like suggestions by end of day tomorrow, or do you need it by tonight, or what you're thinking?
Yeah, the supplemental is not due until February 28th. So if I could have any other comments or suggestions a few days prior to that, I'll provide an email with a few of these updates that we talked about tonight. And so that'll be one of them with a deadline for any additional thoughts or updates or edits.
Great. So if folks have a chance to just go over and scan through that document one more time, and if anything else comes up, yeah, we'd love to have your thoughts. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Susan.
Great. And then I think we're on to our next agenda item, and we're running now a little bit behind. So we'll try to stick as close to time as possible, but some very important information that Hannah's going to share with us about Human Services Commissioner transition.
Yes, so as we, thank you, Susan. As we are approaching the end of the term coming in April, the city is currently recruiting for new human service commissioners to begin a new term starting May 1st. So if your term expires in April, we would love for you to consider renewing your term and continuing serving on the commission. We've heard from some of you of your plans, and if you have not had an opportunity to let us know, please just reach out. Tonight, though, we do have a commissioner due to health reasons. This will be their last meeting. So Anna, we just wanted to just give an opportunity just to say thank you. We commend you for your services, your support for human services for the city of Issaquah. And I'd love to just kind of give the floor for you to just share a few words and then also for others commissioners to speak as well.
Well, anyway, just to the mayor, to the city, to the staff, council, community, everybody that has been involved in any activity, decision making, all the process that makes us a great community. I would like to thank them really, and it was not an easy decision because I really love the human services. That's my passion. But when I do things, I like to do them maybe 200% or more. So right now, I think it's time to give other people an opportunity because for medical reasons that you guys already know, I have to step down because it would be very, very uphill for me to work on this grant process. So I would like to thank everyone and to the new, good luck. Once you go through the first process, you'll fall in love with it. The first one is the proof of fire. But I hope you guys continue the excellent work with the staff, the city, the mayor, council, everybody. And I wish you well. And I'll be hearing you some, I guess, forever. So if you guys cross paths, you know, in the store or a church or anywhere, or you guys have a question, you have my email, or just go for it. I'm open for it, but really as a commissioner, I have to step down now. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'll miss you guys. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And Anna, if you don't mind, I was thinking about, I knew what was coming tonight, and I was thinking about like, oh my gosh, what are all my wonderful memories of working with you? I think we've worked together for about 3 or 4 years now, and Anna's right. The first grant process is pretty intimidating, but once you go through it, you do really realize what kind of an impact you have, and I always remember being so grateful that I guess for a couple of things, Anna was very persistent and effective in her reminders to us about things that we should be considering and people that we shouldn't be forgetting. And I look back now, Anna, and I see a lot of your a lot of your ideas baked into this human services strategy. And I think God bless you for continuing to championing that year after year after year until the time was right, and then we could actually take action on it. And sometimes you find yourself kind of like getting caught up in, I don't know, like small details or the math or something like that. And Anna was always so helpful in making sure that we remembered it was about the people. It was about the people that we were serving. It was about the people who needed our help. It's about the people who needed something as small as a place to go in Issaquah where they could get a telephone number in the middle of the night. And it's just so exciting to see some of that thinking really, really take flight. So I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your persistence, and your ideas are going to be all around you. So I want to just thank you so much for all you've done. And, we owe you a big debt of gratitude. So thank you.
Gracie, I see your hand.
Anna, thank you so much for all the service that you have contributed to the commission and in other ways to the city of Issaquah. I would like to actually challenge your retirement from the commission by saying that if as your health improves, I really do hope that you will reapply for this position or others as they become available, as your voice is essential to the work that we do here. And in the meantime, I'd like to encourage you to continue to call in and hold us to what we have signed ourselves up to contribute, and to remind us. I think that your voice is important. And so those are my two challenges to your retirement from the commission. And again, thank you for your service. I really appreciate what I have learned from you.
And Anna, I hope we can cross paths again in person one of these days when everybody is able to gather and enjoy again. So maybe at a community event or whatever, but really wish you well, and we know we'll be hearing from you again. So thank you.
all for your kind words. Are you proposing we have another group, Susan?
A what?
That's
I'm so sorry, I couldn't hear that last word. Maybe somebody else could.
a class reunion of the alumni.
Oh, a class reunion.
So
I think that's an excellent idea. It's an excellent idea.
No, but thank you. Very kind words, and my blessings will be always for you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anna, is there anything else that you wanted to cover tonight, or any other business or announcements?
So the last thing that I just want to touch base on, so we just wanted to also take this opportunity to share some upcoming transitions. So the following here tonight will be stepping down at the end of April, and they will be ending their term. So wanted to announce that tonight. So Lucrecia, Susan, and Claire, you will all be sorely missed. This is not your official farewell, so but we did want to give commissioners just a heads up of the upcoming transitions and the opening positions. And so we'll talk more about the transitions, and again, we'll have a proper farewell. Not now, we still have you for a few more months. So yeah, that their terms will be ending end of April. And again, we are doing recruitment, so you'll be seeing more information about that. So that's the final comment I had for this evening. Thank you all. I appreciate our conversation tonight. Susan?
Yeah, thank you. And then just moving on to item number 7 before we adjourn, the next meeting, and just if you don't mind, a recap of next steps on the human services plan and, the study session, et cetera, just so a good reminder for what's coming up for this group, optional and regular.
Okay, I'm going to give a stab at it. Monica, you tell me if I missed something. All right, so next Tuesday, February 15th, we have our study session where we will presenting hopefully the final human service strategic plan. I will also be sending an email about that. In addition, on the 17th, on an unrelated note, we have our Black History Month events at noon and the evening. I'll send more information about that. Then we have on the 22nd of February our adoption. So that'll be a regular council session, currently scheduled for 22nd. It could be moved to the March 7th. So more information to come on that. And then we are looking to meet again as a commission on March 16th. Am I missing a meeting, Monica?
You did a wonderful job.
Anything?
You covered it. Sorry, Susan.
Oh, no, thank you. I'm sorry. I thought I saw one of the commissioners. Trish, did you want to add anything to that schedule? I saw maybe a hand. No. Okay. Thank you. Any other business announcements from any of the other commissioners? All right. Well, again, thank you all so much for your great input, for sending Anna off with some thanks. And again, congratulations to Hannah and Monica on this fabulous work. There's a lot of passion built into it, and I think that City Council is recognizing that in spades. And I'm just really excited about next steps. So congratulations to everyone in advance. And I would like to adjourn this meeting, this special meeting of the Issaquah Human Services Commission of February 9th, 2022 at 8:05 p.m. So thank you all very much, and we will see you again soon.